All right, so let me give you some context for this video. In his debate with the apostate prophet, Ali Dawah presented the argument from contingency and made at least 5 mistakes in his presentation. That's at least, I counted at least 5. The argument from contingency is my favorite argument for the existence of God, so I made a video explaining 5 different ways that Ali could improve his presentation. Ali Dawah eventually caught wind of my video and then made the following tweet in response. Imagine a Christian teaching me contingency argument, laughing emoji, laughing emoji, laughing emoji, a theology that believes a necessary being at one point became contingent, laughing my ass off, I'm dead, laughing emoji, ha ha ha, this one is too funny, facepalm emoji. So instead of watching or interacting with the content of my video, which actually would have been a big help to him if he would have taken it seriously, Ali decides to make an emoji-filled tweet making fun of the Incarnation. Ali Dawah already needed a lesson on the contingency argument, but it looks like he now needs a lesson on the doctrine of the Incarnation. Hello, I am Cameron Bertuzzi. Welcome to Capturing Christianity, a channel that is exposing you to the intellectual side of Christian belief. If you're new to Apologetics, I've got some free resources that I want to give you. The first free resource is a 60-page ebook that I co-authored with philosopher Dustin Crummett entitled The Rationality of Christian Theism. The second free resource is a PDF of a list of apologetics terms with definitions and explanations. The second resource is thebomb.com, in my opinion. So to get your hands on these free resources, just click the link in the description. And yes, you can still get your hands on them if you're on your cell phone. All right, so going back to the tweet. Ali Dawah claims that Christianity teaches that a necessary being became contingent. In case you're unfamiliar with these terms, I'll briefly explain them. So a contingent being is a being that exists in some possible reality, but not in all possible realities. So for example, I'm a contingent being. There is a possible world where my parents never met, and hence there is a possible world where I don't exist. Nearly everything in our experience, phones, computers, speakers, lights, cameras, most of the things that we interact with are contingent. A necessary being, by contrast, has to exist. It must exist in every single possible world, in every possible reality. So Ali Dawah is saying that Christianity teaches that God, a necessary being that cannot fail to exist, became a contingent being that can fail to exist when Jesus became human. And the first thing that I want you to note is that there is absolutely no verse in the Bible that remotely teaches anything like this. It doesn't say in the Gospel of John, for example, that God, a necessary being, became a contingent being at the Incarnation. There's nothing like that in the Bible at all. So where does this notion, however, of necessary being come from if it's not in the Bible? It comes from philosophical reflection. Theologians and philosophers recognize that the Bible is finite in length and can't possibly answer every question. Christians are therefore free to reflect on what God might be like beyond what's revealed in Scripture. Various philosophical considerations, like the argument from contingency, have increasingly led Christian philosophers toward the view that God is a necessary being. And while this might not be explicitly taught in Scripture, these philosophers take it to be consistent with Scripture. So Ali's claim here is that, again, according to Christianity, a necessary being became contingent, and that's just absurd. So where do we go from here? Where do we go? Is this game over for Christian theology? Well, in a word, no, it is not game over. Ali Dawah has basically misunderstood Christian theology. According to Christian theology, Jesus Christ, the second person of the Trinity, did not become contingent. He contingently became man. But he, that divine person, is, was, and always will be necessary. So in other words, what's contingent about Jesus is the incarnation itself. He is not the one that's contingent. Jesus taking on a human nature is a contingent event, but Jesus never became contingent. Jesus Christ, the second person of the Trinity, exists necessarily. So now I could just end the video here and just say that Ali Dawah has misunderstood Christian theology, but I want to take it a step further. I want to show you a model of the Incarnation on which we could say that Jesus is contingent and necessary in a sense. So for the remainder of this video, we'll look at the model of the Incarnation that Christian philosopher Pawl has developed that he calls Conciliar Christology. If you've never heard the term conciliar before, conciliar means relating to or proceeding from a council. And we'll see why that's important in just a minute. So to summarize Dr. Pawl's view, the correct way to understand or analyze the statement Jesus is divine is in terms of Jesus having a nature that is divine. So Jesus is divine just in case Jesus has a nature that is divine. And so similarly, Jesus is human just in case Jesus has a nature that is human. So the only way to get a contradiction between the divine properties like necessity and the human properties like contingency, we have to say that Jesus has only one nature. But that view that Jesus has a single nature has been considered heretical since the Council of Chalcedon in 451 AD. All right, so let me unpack this just a little bit more, and we'll go into some more detail here. So let's look at 4 separate propositions. 1, Jesus is divine. 2, Jesus is human. 3, every divine being is necessary, cannot fail to exist. 4, every human being is contingent, can fail to exist. Christians in general believe all of these propositions are true. The problem, however, is that they jointly entail a contradiction. They entail 5. Jesus cannot fail to exist, and Jesus can fail to exist. So Dr. Pawl's view is that 3 should actually be understood as 3 star. 3 star, every divine being has a nature that is necessary, cannot fail to exist. Likewise, 4 should actually be understood as 4 star. Every human being has a nature that is contingent, can fail to exist. So the proposition about Jesus that we arrive at now is actually 5 star. 5 star, Jesus has a nature that cannot fail to exist and has a nature that can fail to exist. So the only way to say that 5 star entails a contradiction is by adding another proposition to the set, 6. Jesus has a single nature. The problem is that 6 is heretical. As I mentioned earlier, the Council of Chalcedon, which all branches of Christianity accept, explicitly says Jesus is one person with 2 natures. This council set the boundaries on what Orthodox Christians can say about Jesus. Hence, orthodoxy forces us to reject 6. But if we reject 6, Dr. Pawl contends that we no longer have reason to think that the original 4 propositions are in conflict. And keep in mind that Dr. Pawl's view, which is sometimes called a 2 natures view, is just one model of the Incarnation. The reason why I focused on it here is because it's one of the best currently available. But in any case, it's pretty clear that Dr. Pawl's model of the Incarnation is perfectly coherent and doesn't entail that a necessary being became contingent. And by the way, my friend Jordan Hampton has a couple interviews with Dr. Pawl on the Incarnation. If you'd like to check those out, I highly recommend giving them a watch. They're linked in the description of this video. So the question for us is this: how will Ali Dawah react to this video? Will he watch it and accept that he's completely misunderstood Christian theology? Or will he ignore the content and mock Christianity in some other way, revealing that he needs yet another lesson in philosophical theology? The ball is in Ali's court. Oh, and always remember that Christianity is true.